someone was asking me actually last night about, he was thinking about writing, and he says, well, if I'm writing longhand, I really can't keep up with my thought processes. Is it okay if I dictate? I said, well, first of all, you don't need anyone's permission, mine or anyone else's, to do whatever technique works best for you. It's basically you have to experiment. Part of creativity is the experimentation of how to get what is in your mind down in a concrete form that you can share with other people. And for every artist, that's a different kind of experience. So, and it's a subjective experience as well, because you know what works for you as a musician or as a writer, and you also, because you've been around a lot of other writers and musicians, know that other people have different techniques that work for them but wouldn't necessarily work for you. And I mean, like for me as a writer, it's I think of like a grain of sand in a shell. It's how you form an oyster. Is it takes a lot of time, and it's constantly new layer upon new layer upon new layer. You never let it go until you feel that it is pro quality. And that's when you get there. I have no way of knowing in advance when I get there. I just know when I'm there that I can see that it's worked. And so that you have to be comfortable going through a process without handrails, without the sense of control, without the sense that somehow there is a paint-by-numbers way of doing something. You have to lose yourself into that process and trust enough that you will come out of that if you let go. And for me, it's letting the characters come to me rather than my going to the characters. I guess, like I was saying to Peter last night, I said, do a list of your characters. Get to know the people that you're writing about, but unless you're just writing about yourself. If you're writing about people who are characters, who are fictional characters, find out who they are. Spend time with them. Spend time with them on the page. You know, how old are they? What color are their eyes? What kind of cereal do they buy when they go to the supermarket? You know, do they go out on a weekend on a bicycle or jog? Do they watch certain TV programs? You know, what was their last bad relationship? Why did it break up? Not that you're going to use all of that, but you find the more you know about that person's background, the more you will be able to judge what their reactions are in a particular scene that you put them in. Is that you need to know who your cast are. And then once you know the cast that well, they tell you the story because they tell it through the experiences that you know that have shaped them, as opposed to you shaping them through your experiences. That's not art. Anyone can do that. A lot of people try to do that, but it doesn't work very well. It's not satisfying. People say, well, the characters were flat. They didn't really come alive. And that's what they mean. They mean that they've created something that they have not taken the time to go to the deeper part of the psychology of that person. Because people deep down have insecurities and they have fears and they have doubts. With all of the masks that they wear, underneath there are the interesting things. And it's interesting things that we try to hide from ourselves. And those are the things that come out in good writing. Because when you find that there's those revelations by other people as characters and you get to know them, you become more comfortable with the fact that indeed there are those things that are universal, that people do share and sometimes don't share amongst others.
The thing that, as you were talking, I was kind of contrasting being a writer with being a jazz musician, because you can take time, you can kind of sit back and allow the experience to happen, as you were saying.
Yes.
Kind of get the protagonist in your sights and develop it, where as a musician I'm just jumping up on the bandstand and I have a very, it's like I have a little small veil that I wear,
Sure.
which is the tune, and then we're off, and there's a little bit of structure, but very little. And so it's much more winging it. There's not the opportunity to erase, this.
But it may be that there's what I was talking about. Maybe more like what a musician does in terms of practice.
Developing the craft,
the technique.
Sure.
Is that, and I've talked to some of pianists. They'll practice 8 to 10 hours a day, and so in a sense, a lot of things I was talking about are the equivalent of that. It is the practice session. But what you have as a musician is you've got the eye contact with the audience. You know whether you have their attention or they're broken up into little groups and have a conversation and they're not really paying attention.
Right. So there's an immediacy.
There's an immediacy. So you have a connection with an audience the way that a writer does not have a connection with the audience, because we work in isolation for a long period of time, and only when the book is out, we don't watch someone read the book.
Right.
Okay. We will hear someone say, "Oh yeah, I read the last of your Calvino books and I liked it," and they may go into a little bit more detail, but by and large, you don't have that emotional connection that a musician has, because you can just see when you are in that zone as a musician, that you're going to carry people in that audience in that zone with you, and they're going to stay there with you, and because they want to be in that space that you've created. And we're both space creators, but we don't get to share the space with our audiences in the same way.
And so underneath, it's like different formats or different tools, and then underneath it is creativity, which is the thing that we would share together.
Right.
I like to think that I am creativity, that human beings are creativity, that we're constantly moving and changing, and homeostatic balance is changing. So there's this energy that moves through us, and this awareness that's constantly shifting, that I think of as creativity. And writing or music or whatever is merely a tool for whatever reasons that we have picked up that expresses that creativity. But you could say that a scientist is equally as creative, or a mother is equally as creative. It's the kind of one of the core energetic experience of the human being is creativity.
I agree with that entirely. I think if you take someone, say like a Robin Williams, and there you're seeing, creativity. Creativity is that ability to take the ordinary patterns that people take into their life and manipulate them and change them in extraordinary ways, to make you think about something that reveals some aspect of the human psyche that makes us laugh, that makes us sad. But at some point, it's the thing that says, wow, that's an expanded view of what reality is. And creativity is that kind of pattern recognition manipulation, the ability to create new patterns out of what people just assume is the one way of looking at things.